I learned a little history about pearl knotting. And that is the origin of pearl knotting came about as a way to secure the pearls for jewelry, because pearls were considered very valuable, and many pearls today also are valuable. And that would ensure that if the strand broke, all the pearls wouldn't be lost. It secured them on the strand. And that's just a little tidbit that I learned that I found interesting. The first technique I'm going to show you uses tweezers. These are fine tip tweezers. And I'm just demonstrating, so it doesn't really matter how much thread we start with. But I also want to mention that I often run my thread through this thread wax. It just helps condition it so it doesn't tangle quite so badly, and it stretches it out a little bit. Not that nylon thread stretches that much. Traditionally, I think a lot of pearl knotting was done with silk thread and still is. But when you use silk thread, you have to stretch it. Either you have to wet it down and hang it over something and weight both sides down to stretch it out, because if you don't, over time your thread will stretch on your neck, and then your knots won't stay nice and even in between your pearls. Also, this technique is not only used with pearls, it's used with other beads. You can use a heavier cord and use this technique with beads that have larger holes, with gemstones, with a variety of different beads. Our next step is to thread our needle. You want to use a needle that is very slim with a small eye, and I'm using this needle threader, which we sell here at Cousin, to help guide that thread through the eye, because it's so tiny it would be challenging to do without it. So at this point, I'm going to slide the needle to the middle of my thread. I got it tangled a little bit. Make sure I get that tangle out. And I'm going to tie a double or triple overhand knot, making sure that the knots, here's a double, I want to make sure that the knots rest together. And I'm going to do a triple just to make it secure. And then I'm going to load, I'll load a few pearls. Now the next step is, here's our first pearl. We're going to create an overhand knot above that first pearl, and we're going to put the pearl down through that knot. Then we're going to take our tweezers, and it's important that you go down through the loop of the overhand knot that you're starting to make, and that you grab the base of this thread right over the top of that pearl in the middle of that loop. And then you're going to pull, and the tweezers will make that knot form right beyond that pearl. Then you want to test it to make sure that that pearl is firmly being held on. If not, you can create another overhand knot on top of the first one to make sure that that pearl is being held securely. Let's do another one. Now we slide the next pearl down, form an overhand loop, and we bring those pearls through the loop. We go down through the middle of that loop, down to the base of that next pearl, and we close that knot. And the knot is nice and snug up against that pearl. And that's held on nice and snug. Do it again. Each time as you accumulate more beads on your knotted strand, you're going to put all those beads down through the loop. Loop, beads through the loop. Make sure that you're going down through the loop to the thread at the base or at the top of that pearl. And then see how they're nice and snug up against the pearl. And that also, now if you use a finer thread, you're probably going to have to double knot in between each pearl, because it all depends on the hole size in your pearl. Make sure we're going down through that loop to find the thread at the top of that pearl and pull that knot closed. So you can see how this technique works. And to make a bracelet or necklace or even earrings, you would just have a longer thread to begin with, and you would just keep building your knotted strands until you got to the length that you wanted. Later, when I'm showing you how to make the projects, I will show you how to begin and end to add a clasp and a jump ring on each end. We'll be right back and we'll show you technique number 2. This is technique number 2, and we're going to use a handheld pearl knotter. The tool looks like this. It has an awl and a fork. Also, this time I changed to a thinner thread and I preloaded my needle. This is a size 60 nylon beading thread, and the previous thread I used in the tweezer technique was a number 30. So this will help show you how to make additional knots on top of each other if necessary to separate your beads so that the knot won't slide into the hole of your pearl. I'm going to load 4. Okay, now we have 5. And we're going to do similar looping to start as we did in the tweezer technique. You're going to form a loop over your first pearl, and you're going to bring that pearl through the loop. But this time, you're just going to take the awl on your handheld knotting tool, slide it through that loop, and then pull that down right snug as you can to your pearl. Then you're going to take the thread up through the fork, and you're going to pull and guide it off the awl. Now, that knot easily slides through the hole in the pearl. So we're going to make another one. We're going to repeat that and do it again because this thread is thinner. So make the loop. The pearl strand goes through the loop. Put the awl in the tool through the loop, being sure to catch. And then we're going to slide it down snug with that first knot. Now we have, oh, still tends to slide off, so let's do a third one. Down to that knot, up through the fork, and slide it off. Now that will hold the pearl on. So we'll slide our next pearl down, make a loop. The knotted strand goes through the loop. The awl in the tool goes through that loop, snug it down, up through the fork, and slide it off. And we'll do it another 1 or 2 times through the loop. We'll do it one more time because it still wants to, oops, loop, strand through the loop. The awl goes through that loop. The thread comes up through the fork and we slide it off. There. Slide the next bead down. Form a loop. The entire strand goes through the loop. The awl goes through the loop, slide it down. The thread comes up through the fork and guide it off. And we'll repeat that like one more time. You can see how you gain speed once you get the heck of it and you just keep going. One more that not. And try to meet the previous overhand knot that you formed. There. Form the loop. The beaded strand goes down through the loop. The awl goes through the loop. Pull, bring the thread up through the fork and off. That one, there. Repeat. And our last pearl. You're always putting the entire knotted strand down through the loop of your knot. Put the awl through the loop and slide it off. That knot ended up being a little bit further away from my pearl, but that's okay because I'm going to repeat it. So that gives you the knotting tool technique. We have one more technique to go. We'll be right back. Our third technique is using this knot a bead tool that's available on our website. I preloaded needle and thread with 5 pearls. This time I'm using a little heavier weight nylon cord, and I pre-treated it with the wax. You don't have to use that thread wax. And I knotted the bottom. So let's get started. So the first step is to place the first bead over the awl, and because we only have one bead so far, that goes down and over, and we're going to pull that snug on the awl, and then we're going to tip it back like this, slide it to the right, take that tail, and then we're going to keep tugging on this as we slowly, this all comes to a point at the end. It gets skinnier right here. And it gave us a knot nice and snug up against our pearl. We'll slide our next pearl down. Now both pearls go over, come down through a loop, pull them snug on the awl, tip those beads up. The tail goes through this little hook, pull snug, 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 and keep pulling as we release the awl. And these knots are large enough to hold our pearls in place without the knots sliding through the holes. If you were using the thinner cord, you could make another knot right over the knot we just made. So let me show you how to do that. You would slide your bead strand snug your cord up to the awl. Bring your tail through that hook and slide everything over. Pull nice, nice, nice and tight. We want to make this knot over the previous knot, and ever so carefully. So there we have 2 knots, one on top of the other. And make another knot on top of the next pearl. Slide it over, pull snug, and release. I could have done a little better job here, but I'm not going to go back. This is just demonstration. Bring your strand through the loop. Oops. Pull it snug on the awl. Tip your beads back up, the tail around the hook, slide over, over, over while you're tugging, and release the awl. My 5th bead fell off, so I will thread it back on. The strand goes down. Through the loop, pull it snug, tip the beads back. Thread tail goes through that hook, slide it over and pull snug, snug, snug. So once you get familiar with how to use this tool, this process can go pretty quickly. So here's an example of what they look like. So when we come back, we'll get started on our first bead knotting project. See you soon.